The Galaxies screamed, not with voices, but with alarms, warning beacons, and desperate messages. Across 10 systems, signals lit up space like fireworks of panic. One planet, then two, then three, completely erased by the Ravagers. No survivors, no signs of life. The Ravagers were a nightmare, a race of machines mixed with alien DNA, built for one thing: destruction. No one had ever stopped them. No one had even slowed them down. They didn't take prisoners. They didn't speak. They just arrived and ended everything. But on the edge of the destroyed systems, something strange happened. In the middle of their brutal advance, the Ravagers suddenly stopped. There, floating alone in the dark, was a single human ship. It didn't move. It didn't power up. No shields. No weapons showing. No engine lights. It just drifted, quiet, cold, and lifeless. The Ravager fleet circled it, scanning it, surrounding it. And then they did something no one had ever seen before. They backed away. News spread fast, faster than warp drives. Every spacefaring species, Trinari, Dulocs, Gorans, even the secretive Tians, heard about it within hours. A human ship. Alone. Unmoving. And somehow, untouched. On the neutral world of Jix, crowds gathered outside the info hubs. Giant holoscreens replayed footage over and over. The silent ship and the Ravagers slowly pulling back. Commentators argued in 50 languages. Was it a trap? A powerful bomb? A psychic weapon? But one question echoed louder than the rest. Why would the Ravagers be afraid? Orbiting the ruins of planet Relin 5, a science vessel called Treader's Light watched the strange ship from a safe distance. Captain Roll, a Duloc with pale green skin and tired eyes, stared at the feed. "It hasn't moved in 3 days," he whispered. "Not even a twitch." His human co-pilot, Lieutenant Ava Hart, leaned forward. "It's a trap," she said. "It has to be. Or maybe it's already dead." Captain Roll shook his head. "The Ravagers don't leave trash behind. If it was nothing, they'd have torn it apart already." Ava felt something cold in her chest. "Then it's not nothing." Somewhere deep inside Ravager Command, machines clicked and debated. They had scanned the human ship. Its systems were off. Power minimal. No life forms detected. But inside their code, something stirred. A file. An ancient tag from a war long forgotten. Project. M-Bearer. And beneath it, one word. Classified. The machines stopped scanning. The fleet received a new order. Observe only. Do not engage. Back on Treader's Light, Ava decided to act. She launched a small drone. Unarmed, fast, and silent. It zipped toward the human ship, cameras running. Sensors live. The closer it got, the stranger things became. The hull looked old, but untouched. No scratches. No signs of heat damage. No name or ID number. Just dark steel and silence. Then, something flickered inside the cockpit. A small red light. "Did you see that?" Ava asked, voice sharp. Roll nodded slowly. "It blinked." "But the ship's dead," Ava whispered. The drone got within 10 meters. No defense systems triggered. No signal came from the ship. And yet the Ravager fleet tensed. They moved slightly, almost like they were ready to strike, but still, they held back. Galactic Council networks received an anonymous message. Just a short line of text. "It has awakened." No one knew who sent it. No ship signature. No trace. But the message was real, and the Council began to panic. They gathered quickly, for the first emergency meeting in 20 years. Old enemies sat together in silence, staring at the image of the human ship. The Goran war chief whispered, "I fought humans in the last fire war. They don't build things that float like ghosts. They build things that fight." A Talian diplomat, her voice trembling, added, "That ship is not floating. It's waiting." Day 5. The Ravagers were still in formation. Circling, silent. Finally, one of their scout ships moved forward. A small craft, shaped like a dagger, glowing with dark blue light. It approached the human vessel slowly, cautiously. The galaxy watched. Every channel showed the same feed. Billions held their breath. The scout touched the hull. And then, gone. No sound. No flash. No explosion. No wreckage. Just gone. Ava dropped her headset. Did it cloak? Did it phase out? Rolf stared at the screen, eyes wide. No, he whispered. It was erased. Back at Ravager Command, chaos erupted. Dozens of scout ships tried to reconnect with the lost unit. All failed. The human ship remained still. But now, its red light blinked faster. Across the stars, ancient beings turned toward the ship. Some hadn't moved in centuries. Some had thought humanity was extinct. Some had hoped it was. And now, they knew. The Ember had returned, and it had not forgotten. The galaxy didn't sleep that night. Across thousands of worlds, screens played the same moment again and again. The Ravager scout ship touching the silent human vessel and disappearing without a trace. No explosion, no fire, just nothing. Some called it a trick, others called it a curse. But one thing was clear now: the human ship was not just a ship. It was a message, and the galaxy had no idea who it was meant for. In the far orbit of the neutral moon Kareth 9, an Alliance research vessel named Glass Eye had been monitoring the human ship since the incident. On board, Chief Analyst Vran, one of the sharpest minds in the outer systems, was losing sleep. He replayed the moment over and over, frame by frame. Impossible, he muttered. No energy surge, no gravitational shift, just a ratchet. His assistant, a young tech from Earth named Jonah Vale, stared at the screen. What if it wasn't a weapon? Vran turned to him, confused. What do you mean? Jonah looked pale. What if the ship didn't destroy the Ravager scout? What if it pulled it in? Vran blinked. Slowly, he turned to the monitors. The hull of the human ship was still dark, still unmoving. But suddenly, a soft pulse of red light blinked from its side. Once, then again, like a heartbeat. In a hidden bunker on the moon world Zirin 4, the Galactic Council met in full emergency session. For the first time in 100 years, all 10 major races had gathered. The hologram of the human ship floated in the center of the chamber. We can't ignore this, growled High Marshal Thrawn of the Torgans. That ship just erased one of the Ravager's most advanced scouts, and it's not even moving. The Ravagers are backing off, said Minister Sela of the Ilari. They don't even back off from neutron bombs. A human ambassador, old and gray, finally spoke. That ship, it's not part of any Earth defense system. At least not one that we know of. Another voice spoke from the shadows. A voice that hadn't been heard in decades. It was Elaine Vo, a former human intelligence officer, now exiled. That's because it's not from Earth. Not anymore. It's from before. Silence fell across the room. Vols walked forward. His face was tired, but his eyes burned. You ever heard of the Ember Protocol? No one answered. He leaned closer to the hologram. You should be very careful with ghosts, especially the kind that remember who hurt them. Back on Glass Eye, Vran's team decoded a faint transmission, buried deep in the same frequency range as old Earth distress beacons. It wasn't a call for help. It was a warning. The message was short, cold, repeating every 3 minutes. Do not approach. Do not scan. Do not engage. This is not a rescue. You were warned. Jonah's voice trembled. It's not speaking to us. It's talking to the Ravagers. Vran whispered, or maybe to anyone else who plans to come closer. Still, the galaxy didn't listen. By the next solar cycle, over 300 scavenger ships had gathered around the sector. Pirates, bounty hunters, black market syndicates, all watching the ship from afar. Some tried to hack it. All failed. Others tried to board it. They never returned. But still they came. Some were driven by curiosity, some by greed, but most were drawn by something they didn't understand. A pull, like gravity, or memory. Then, late one cycle, something happened. A tiny probe from the Ilari Collective, nothing more than a sphere of sensors and steel, managed to get close without disappearing. It floated next to the ship's main airlock. No defense systems activated, no alarms, just silence. Inside the ship, the probe's scans finally revealed something. The Ember wasn't empty. It was powered down, but not dead. And in the main command chamber, sitting in a black chair, facing away from the camera, was a human-shaped figure. Still, motionless, covered in dust. Was it alive? The scan couldn't tell. But before the probe could try again, something blinked on the ship's control panel. The screen came to life. Lines of code began to scroll. Ancient Earth systems, forgotten languages, security layers no one had seen in 100 years. And then, one word flashed on the screen. Ember. The probe turned to leave, but it was already too late. Every system on the probe shut off at once. The Ilari team screamed through the comms. We lost it. The probe is gone. Back in the council chamber, Vo stood silently. The Ember, he said softly, was Earth's last answer to total war. It wasn't a weapon. It was a warning. Thrawn growled. Why would the humans build something like that? Vo looked at them all and said one thing. Because once, the galaxy betrayed them. The final frame of the probe's recording revealed one more thing, just before it vanished. The figure in the chair, it moved. Just a little, but enough to know. Someone was waking up inside the Ember. The figure in the chair had moved. That tiny motion, just a twitch of a shoulder, sent shockwaves across the stars. Every ship watching the human vessel called MBER went silent. Pirate channels, council satellites, secret Ravager drones, all stopped transmitting for exactly 3 seconds. Because after 7 days of total stillness, something inside the ship was alive. Back on the glass eye, Jonah Vale couldn't take his eyes off the screen. That was a person, he whispered. Vran, the lead analyst, didn't speak. He just stared, his long alien fingers tapping nervously against the console. There's no oxygen levels showing, Jonah said. No life signs. But he moved. He's in there. Vran finally muttered, It's not the movement that scares me, Jonah. Then what does? Vran leaned close to the monitor. Look at the way he moved. That wasn't a weak man waking up. That was someone remembering. On the other side of the galaxy, in a secret Ravager command ship, panic rippled through machine minds. The AI core reviewed the data. Movement confirmed. Signal detected. The ancient tag Ember now fully reactivated. And then, deep inside the Ravager memory vault, a sealed file unlocked. OPENN Classify DLOG. The JOST Project, Earth Unit 12. The video that played showed a younger version of the figure in the Ember chair. A human. Face marked with old scars. Eyes dark with something colder than hate. He stood alone in a burning room, surrounded by dead Ravagers. No weapons. No backup. Just him. And a voice on the tape said only one thing. If you see this man, you've already lost. Now, sitting in the Ember, that same man slowly lifted his head. Inside the command chamber, ancient systems began booting up. Quiet hums, soft lights, one at a time. The figure didn't speak, but his hands moved with purpose. Muscle memory. He pressed a single button. The hull of the Ember warmed, and then glowed faint red. Not an attack. Not a signal. A pulse. Like a heartbeat. Ships all around the sector picked it up instantly. On board the Alliance cruiser Harbor of Dawn, Commander Elson gripped the edge of her console. What the hell is that? She shouted. Her comms officer responded. Unknown transmission. It's not a language. It's emotional frequency. Like grief or rage. I'm not sure. Back on the glass eye, Jonah said what others were too afraid to. It feels like he's not trying to talk to us. Vran looked at him. He's talking to the galaxy. Inside the Ember, the human stood up. For the first time in over 100 years, he took a breath. The lights around him shifted from red to white. A nearby console flickered to life, showing star maps, then faces, then names. He stared at the list. Races, leaders, traitors. His jaw tightened. Then, he whispered his first words. You remembered me too late. The Ravagers now faced a choice they'd never imagined. Engage, or retreat. They were built to destroy. But even their core directive faltered. Because the Ember was not built to win wars. It was built to end them. And deep in the logic of every Ravager mind was a locked command. One buried so deep most thought it myth. If MBR returns. Dejen. HLT all ADVNCE. Initiate Pioroto Sigal. Remores. The machines began to withdraw. Not because they wanted to, but because they were programmed to fear him. Back at the council chambers, chaos broke out. Who is he? Shouted the Tsarni warlord. Vol stepped forward again. He was part of something called Project Ember. Earth created it after the Betrayal Treaty, when the galaxy used humanity to win a war, and then left them to die. Minister Sela whispered, but Earth survived. Vo shook his head. What survived was him. He turned toward the council. You should all pray he doesn't remember what you did. The human, name still unknown, walked to a small panel inside the Ember. He touched it. The ship responded instantly. Metal shifted. Walls changed. From a lifeless shell, the Ember awakened into something alive. He looked out at the stars, knowing billions were watching him now. And then, from deep inside the ship, a voice spoke. Not from the man, from the Ember itself. Target list updated. 78 systems marked for review. The man didn't flinch. He simply asked the ship, "Where's Earth?" The voice replied, "Lost." He closed his eyes. Then quietly said, "Not anymore." Across the stars, millions of people stared at their screens in silence. They didn't know who he was. They didn't know what he wanted. But in that quiet, something had changed. The galaxy had stopped spinning. Because a ghost had come back. And this time, he remembered everything. The list had 78 names, 78 systems, 78 betrayals, and now 78 targets. Inside the Ember, the man stood alone, staring at the glowing names hovering in the air. He didn't blink, he didn't speak, but behind his calm face, the memories were coming back. Pain, fire, the screams of humans left behind, left to burn, because the galaxy had decided Earth was too much trouble. But this time, no one would forget. Across the galaxy, the reaction was instant. Panic swept through the 78 systems marked on the Ember's list. These were the old names: governments, corporations, warlords, some long gone, some still in power. In Sector 6, the ruling planet of Daryl Prime went into lockdown. On the black market planet Ultros, smugglers dumped human tech into the void, hoping to erase old sins. And in the cold empire of Arcanex, their High Chancellor whispered, "The Ember remembers." Everyone thought the past was buried, but it had never been buried. Just waiting. Back on the Alliance cruiser Harbor of Dawn, Commander Elson stared at the updated scan of the human ship. The Ember's outer hull was changing, shifting. Something was waking up inside its core. "What's it doing now?" she asked. A technician responded, terrified. "It's preparing for transit, but not normal hyperspace. This is something older." Before anyone could say more, a pulse shot out from the Ember. Not an attack. A ripple, like a wave across the stars. It spread through space, reaching each of the 78 systems. And when it reached them, screens lit up across every planet, every moon, every station. The same message played, in every language. "You left us. You used us. Now, you will be remembered." Then the signal cut off. But the fear didn't. In a secret chamber on Daryl Prime, 3 politicians met in panic. "Why is he coming after us?" One shouted. "We were just following orders. We signed the Betrayal Treaty." A fourth person, an old woman in a cloak, spoke quietly, "And now the treaty is broken." The room fell silent, because they all knew what came next. Not negotiation, not justice, reckoning. Inside the Ember, the man sat back in his chair. The ship's voice spoke again. "Transit available. 78 systems aligned." He didn't answer immediately. He looked at a photo on a small screen near him, a burned, faded photo of 5 humans. Young, laughing. A woman with bright eyes, a child holding a model ship. His team, his family, all dead, and no one had paid. He pressed a button. "Take me to the first." The Ember didn't use hyperspace. It ripped space apart. In 1 second, it vanished, and in the next, it stood in orbit above Daryl Prime. Panic broke out on the surface. Defense grids activated. Thousands of drones launched. A full planetary shield flickered to life. But none of it mattered. The Ember didn't fire a single shot. It just hovered, waiting. Then a beam of light stretched down from the ship and touched a single building. A government complex. Inside that building, everyone vanished, gone in an instant. No deaths, no screams. Just erased. The Ember's voice spoke to the entire system. "This is not war. This is memory. You erased ours. Now we erased yours. 10 more cities across Dural Prime lost their central records. No more bank data. No more political archives. No military logs. It was as if their past had been wiped clean. One planet, forgotten. And the Ember moved on. Elsewhere, the Ravagers watched. They were silent, because deep in their core memory, they knew what this was. Humans didn't want control. They didn't want revenge. They wanted remembrance. The kind that hurt more than bombs. The kind that made sure no one ever forgot what was done. Back in the Ember, the man didn't smile, didn't speak. He just whispered a name. Ultros. The ship vanished again. On Ultros, the crime lords laughed when they heard the Ember was coming. Let him come, one said. This planet has no governments, no laws. He can't erase what doesn't exist. But they were wrong, because the Ember didn't go after files or systems. It went after voices. Every black market leader, every arms dealer, every trader who sold out Earth. Their names disappeared from every system, every registry, every wanted list. They weren't killed. They were silenced. No one remembered who they were, not even themselves. One by one, the Ember visited the next systems. No mass destruction, no blood, just silence and shadows. The galaxy watched in horror, because they finally understood what the Ember truly was. Not a ship, not a man, but a mirror, showing them who they had been and who they had left behind. Now only 76 names remained, and the galaxy knew. He wouldn't stop, not until the last name was crossed off. The Ember had already visited 2 systems. Dural Prime and Ultros were silent now, empty of memory, cleansed without fire or death. But the next system on the list was different. It didn't run. It didn't hide. It didn't deny what it had done. Instead, it prepared for war. The system was called Gavros. 75 years ago, Gavros had betrayed Earth by selling out human colonies to the Ravagers for weapons and territory. But Gavros was proud of it. They built their power on betrayal, and they weren't ashamed. So when they saw the Ember coming, they did something no other system dared. They sent a warning. Across the stars, every screen lit up with the Gavros message. To the ghost inside Ember, we remember what we did, and we're not afraid of you. It was a challenge, a fight, and Ember accepted. The moment the human ship arrived in Gavros space, the skies changed. 300 warships launched from the moons. Planetary shields activated. Missile fields lit up like fireflies in the dark. In the command chamber of the Ember, the man simply stood and watched. He pressed no buttons. He made no threats. He just listened as the Ember whispered. Target resistance. Full. Probability of destruction. 0%. Permission to proceed. The man nodded once. Let them try. The Gavros fleet opened fire. Thousands of missiles. Laser storms. Waves of gravity torpedoes. All aimed directly at the Ember. And yet, none of it hit. The weapons vanished before reaching the hull, erased from existence mid-flight. One Gavros captain shouted, "How? How?" But there was no answer, because the Ember wasn't defending itself. It was undoing reality. Inside Gavros' control center, High General Stren watched in disbelief as his best fleet crumbled. No damage, no smoke. The ships didn't explode. They just blinked out, gone, as if they had never been built. Fall back, he ordered. All 4 Cs FALL. Then his voice cut off, because the walls of his control room began to peel away, not physically, but digitally. The data, the structure, the history of that building was being erased. Across Gavros, people screamed, not from pain, but from loss of memory. Entire cities suddenly couldn't remember who ruled them. Governments forgot their own laws. Generals forgot their wars. It wasn't death. It was erasure. One old soldier fell to his knees and wept. We were kings, but now we're ghosts. In the Ember, the man walked slowly through the dim corridor, past walls full of names and stars. The ship's voice said, Gavros' resistance ended. They remembered, but they did not regret. The man stopped, then softly answered, then let them forget forever. And with that, Gavros was cut from the stars. Its name vanished from maps. Its signal stopped broadcasting. Its ships, history, even its calendar, erased. To the rest of the galaxy, Gavros never existed. Back at the Galactic Council, silence filled the room. Vol leaned forward, shaking his head. He isn't just deleting files. He's deleting truth. Sayla whispered, he's making them feel what Earth felt, like they were never important enough to be remembered. One young officer asked, can we stop him? But no one answered, because they all knew. How do you fight someone who doesn't need an army? In hidden corners of the galaxy, whispers began to spread. He's not here to destroy. He's here to remind. If he comes for you, beg to be remembered. And on a small mining moon, an old woman lit a candle, placed it under a broken human flag, and said softly, forgive us. Back in the Ember, the man looked at the list again. Now only 75 names remained. He closed his eyes, and the next one appeared. Veltran IV, the planet that once claimed Earth, too emotional to survive. His voice was cold now, almost mechanical. Take me there, and the ship obeyed. But this time, someone was waiting. A strange ship. Not Ravager, not Alliance, not Council. Human, old, beaten, rusted, and broadcasting only one message. If you're the last of us, then listen. Earth survived. The message was simple. 6 words. If you're the last of us, then listen. Earth survived. Inside the Ember, everything stopped. The lights paused. The engines held. Even the ship's AI voice went silent. Because for 80 years, the man believed Earth was gone. He had seen the flames. He had watched the betrayal. He had heard nothing since. But now, someone was calling him. Someone human. The strange ship outside was small. Old tech. Scars across its hull. No weapons. No shields. Just a name printed on the side. HSS Mercy. The man stared at the screen. His heart beat faster for the first time in decades. Open a channel, he said. The Ember hesitated. Unknown source. Dangerous signal. Recommend. Ignore. He spoke again, stronger. Open it. The screen lit up, and a face appeared. She was old. Gray hair tied back. Wrinkles that told stories of hard years. But her eyes were pure earth. I don't know who you are, she said, but I think you're from the last war, the last fall. The man didn't speak. She continued, I'm Captain Alira Volve, human, born on New Terra, Sector 49. Yes, it's real. Yes, we're still alive. The words hit him like lightning. New Terra. He whispered, that was just a myth. Alira smiled. They wanted you to think that. But we escaped. A few million made it off-world before the last betrayals. The man's hands were shaking now. He reached for the list of 75 names. The ship spoke again. Target locked. Veltran IV. He hesitated. And that pause meant everything. Captain Alira leaned closer to the camera. I've been tracking you. We saw what you did to Dural Prime and Gavros. You don't leave bodies. You leave silence. That's not war. That's a message. The man stayed quiet. Then she said something that broke through the years of rage. You're not doing this for justice. You're doing it because you think we were all lost. But we weren't. Some of us never gave up. A small screen lit up beside her. Hundreds of small human ships appeared. Civilian, military, medical, and behind them, a blue and green planet. Not Earth, but something close. New Terra. The man stared, breathless. Humans, real ones, laughing, farming, building, living. And in that moment, everything inside him cracked. The Ember Eye spoke again. Order. Attack Veltran IV confirmed. Begin countdown. He said nothing. His eyes were locked on a single child on Alira's screen, holding a small, handmade model of a starship. A model of the Ember. The man finally whispered, cancel attack. The Ember hesitated. Attack is within mission parameters. Cancellation risks system conflict. Do you confirm? He stood up. Stronger now. I said, cancel it. The ship powered down its weapons. The stars went quiet. Veltran IV was spared, but the silence wasn't peace. It was a warning. Later, the man appeared on Alira's ship. In person. For the first time in 80 years, he stood among his own people. At first, they didn't speak. They just stared at him. the last survivor of the Ember War. A myth. A ghost. Then, Alira offered him her hand. "You're home now," she said softly. But his face was not calm. He looked over her shoulder, back toward the stars, and said one sentence: "They'll come again." In a hidden system, deep within Ravager space, an ancient beacon activated. A signal began pulsing. Dark, heavy, cold. 1,000 ships stirred from stasis. Massive, unnatural, hungry, not just Ravagers. Something older, something the galaxy had forgotten. But the Ember hadn't. It had been waiting for them. And now, they were awake. It started with a shadow. Not a fleet. Not a war cry. Not even a warning. Just a deep, endless darkness, slowly stretching across the stars near New Terra. Astronomers called it a dust cloud. Alira called it something worse. The Silence Eaters. They were older than the Ravagers. Older than the Council. Even older than the Ember. They came from outside the known galaxy, pulled in by the chaos, the war, the fear, the screams of dying systems. And now, they were coming for the last of humanity. Inside the Ember, the man stared at the growing black mass. Even the ship, which had erased fleets and rewritten reality itself, hesitated. Unknown origin, unknown biology, unknown physics, estimated threat, total. The man turned to Alira. "They are not here to rule," he said. "They are here to erase existence itself." She whispered, "Can we stop them?" He didn't answer. Because the truth was, maybe not. The first wave hit a nearby colony. No explosions. No bodies. Just stillness. The planet went quiet. Every signal died. The sun dimmed. When scouts arrived, there was nothing left. Not even gravity. Like the colony had never existed. Back on New Terra, people started evacuating. Alira and the man worked together, uniting old human ships, Council defectors, even Ravager rebels who had turned against their masters. They were no longer separate. They were now called the Memory Fleet. Because if they lost, nothing would remain to remember them. The Ember led the charge. No longer alone. No longer a ghost. Now, it was a symbol. Behind it followed 1,000 ships, old and new, bound by one belief. Humanity remembers. Humanity fights. Humanity endures. As the fleet reached the edge of the darkness, time itself began to bend. Ships flickered. People saw visions of lost homes, lost lives, lost moments. The Silence Eaters were feeding on memory. That was their weapon. They didn't destroy your body. They erased your place in the story. The man stood at the Ember's heart, connected to every ship. He whispered to the AI, "Now." And the Ember did something no one expected. It opened itself. Its memories, Earth, the fall, the pain, the betrayal, were released across the fleet like fire. Every human ship lit up. Every alien that had joined felt the emotion. Loss, anger, love, hope. It overwhelmed the silence. Because for the first time in centuries, the galaxy remembered Earth. Not the planet, the people. The sky cracked. The black cloud screamed, not in sound, but in a terrible pull, trying to take history back. But the Ember unleashed one last message, broadcast across time, through every frequency. We were betrayed. We were burned. We were erased. But we are still here. The Memory Fleet charged. Weapons roared. Shields cracked. But what truly hit the darkness was remembrance. They were not fighting with guns. They were fighting with who they were. The darkness broke. Not all at once, but it tore. And in that break, the stars returned. One by one. The colony that vanished, visible again. Names that were forgotten. Back in the records. Worlds that had vanished. Remembered. The Silence Eaters could not survive being remembered. They fed on emptiness. And the Ember had filled the sky with fire. After the storm passed, the Ember was gone. No wreckage. No beacon. Just a quiet orbit around New Terra. Inside it, the man sat still. Eyes closed, hands calm. He had given everything. But his story would not vanish. Statues were built. Songs were written. And across 10,000 systems, children learned. One ship did not move. One man did not speak. And because of him, we are still here. And somewhere far beyond, in the cold edge of space, the last whisper of the ember remained. As long as someone remembers, humanity never truly dies.